The night air over Banana Island was thick with perfume of rain-soaked bougainvillea. From the wide balcony of his waterfront mansion, Chief Olanrewaju Adetayo watched the soft shimmer of Lagos stretch endlessly into the distance. Beneath the hum of the city, the waves lapped quietly against the rocks, whispering secrets that only the restless could hear. He had built this life from dust, the empire of Adetayo Holdings, the oil blocks in Port Harcourt, the luxury hotels scattered across Abuja, the private jets and philanthropic foundations. To the world he was a king in Agbada, the man who could turn an empty field into gold. Yet the silence of the night betrayed something money could not hide: loneliness. Inside the mansion, the smell of antiseptic and candle wax mingled in the corridors. His wife, Lady Beatrice, lay upstairs, her body frail from the cancer that had slowly taken over her strength. For months, Olanrewaju had watched her fade. The woman who once danced barefoot during family parties now spoke in whispers and smiled through pain. She had been his only true companion, the heart that steadied his ambition. He entered her room quietly. The low hum of the oxygen machine greeted him before her soft voice did. "Ola," she whispered, smiling faintly. "You were still awake." "I could not sleep," he replied, pulling a chair close to her bedside. "The house feels empty without your laughter." She chuckled weakly. "Laughter has gone on holiday, my dear. It will return when I do." He held her hand gently, running his thumb over her thin fingers. "Do not talk like that," he murmured. Beatrice sighed. "You have always feared what you cannot control. But promise me something, anything," he said. "When I am gone, be careful of your family. At Kunal, Sola, and Fammi, each one smiles with their own agenda. You have been generous, maybe too generous. They love your empire, not you." He looked away, his jaw tightening. "I know. That is why I need to see the truth before I join you." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" He smiled, the kind of smile that hid a storm behind it. "A test. A simple test of love." Beatrice squeezed his hand, but her eyelids fluttered, and within moments, sleep claimed her again. Olanrewaju sat watching her breathe, his thoughts running deep. For weeks he had imagined the plan in silence. Now, with his wife at the edge of life, he would find out whom among his blood truly cared for him and for her. The next morning, news broke across the family network. Chief Olanrewaju Adetayo was gravely ill. A private doctor, paid to play along, confirmed the diagnosis for rare cardiac disease. Reporters soon gathered outside the gates of the mansion. Rumors spread like wildfire across Lagos. "The Lion of Lagos is dying," screamed the headlines. 3 siblings arrived within days. Adekunle, his eldest brother, stepped out of a gleaming black SUV in a well-tailored ashagada, his walking cane tapping the marble floor with practiced authority. He was the kind of man who never entered a room quietly. His smile was polite, but his eyes measured everything: the guards, the cars, the servants. Sola came next, younger, restless, dressed in designer sneakers and a shirt unbuttoned halfway down his chest. He greeted the staff with overfamiliar cheer, slipping tips to everyone in sight. "We must keep morale high, eh?" he joked, already imagining what part of the empire could be his. Then came Funmilayo, elegant, soft-spoken, clutching a Bible wrapped in gold leather. She moved like a saint and spoke like a preacher, but everyone knew her prayers often led to contracts and houses. "God's grace will see us through," she declared as she entered the house, perfume trailing behind her like incense. When they gathered in the grand living room, Chief Olanrewaju appeared in a simple white kaftan, moving slowly as if weakened by illness. The siblings rose immediately, concern painted on their faces, though only the youngest, Sola, seemed genuinely unsettled. "My family," Olanrewaju began, "the doctors have told me something difficult. My heart is failing. I may not have much time." Funmalayo gasped dramatically. "God forbid." Adetayo lowered his head. "We are with you, brother." Olanrewaju nodded. "I have spent my life building this family's name, but now I must decide who will protect it when I am gone." The words fell heavy in the air. Every eye brightened at once. Somewhere in the stillness, greed stirred like a sleeping snake. "I will be resting at the Abeokuta villa for a while," he continued. "Beatrice will remain here under care. Each of you will take turns staying with her, 1 week at a time. She will need love and attention." Sola blinked. "Just stay with her." "Yes," Olanrewaju said calmly. "It is not much to ask. Everything I own will one day belong to the one who proves true loyalty." That last sentence burned itself into their minds. Adetayo nodded solemnly. "You can count on me." Funmalayo placed a hand over her chest. "Odd sees my heart." Sola smiled nervously. "Do not worry, big bro. I will take care of her." Olanrewaju smiled faintly. "We shall see." He turned and left the room, his gait slow but steady. Upstairs, he lingered by Beatrice's door, listening to her gentle breathing. He whispered, "Let us see who loves us for who we are, not what we have." The next morning he departed quietly for Abeokuta, accompanied by his loyal lawyer, Mr. Balagun. No one knew that hidden cameras were now embedded across the mansion, nor the daily footage would be sent to him secretly. Once he left, the performance began. Adetayo was the first to take his week. He arrived each morning in crisp adbadas, parading himself before the staff as acting head of the family. He called meetings, demanded account statements, and even replaced the cook with one of his own men. Beatrice tried to smile through it, but his voice grated on her nerves. "Madam, you must eat more," he said one afternoon, standing by her bed. "We need you strong, you know, to oversee property transfers when the time comes." "Property transfers?" she asked weakly. "I am still alive, Kunle." He laughed lightly. "Ah, I am only thinking ahead. Brother Ola would want things to move smoothly." Each night he poured himself cognac in the sitting room and whispered into his phone, "The moment the old man signs the will, I will manage the main company. Make sure the directors are ready to back me." What he did not know was that the security camera above the chandelier captured every word. When his week ended, Sola arrived in noisy fashion. He brought music, laughter, and friends. The mansion became a small party ground. Beatrice often woke to the sound of loud Afrobeats from the pool area. Sola claimed it was to keep the mood alive, but within days, the accounts department reported missing funds, withdrawals under Sola's signature. The lawyer, Mr. Balagun, who had been instructed to observe, quietly noted everything. One night, when Miriam brought Beatrice her medication, she found the young man arguing loudly with a woman on the phone. "Baby, I told you, once the man passes, I will get the Lecky property." "Just relax." Miriam froze by the doorway, heart pounding. Sola turned abruptly, embarrassed. "You heard nothing," he snapped. She bowed slightly. "Yes, sir," but her eyes said otherwise. When Sola's week ended, Funmalayo came, soft-spoken and composed, draped in a flowing white lace gown. She carried prayer books and holy oil, insisting that Beatrice's room be filled with hymns. Every morning she prayed for an hour, then took selfies beside her sister-in-law's bed, captioning them with verses about faith and endurance. Miriam noticed how she barely helped with anything practical, never changed a bedsheet or fetched water. Instead, she held long phone calls with estate agents and pastors who promised divine insight into inheritance. One evening, Beatrice grew feverish, and Miriam rushed for help. Funmalayo stood in the hallway, scrolling through her phone. "Madam Funmi, she needs a doctor," Miriam pleaded. "Ah, small fever." "I will just anoint her," she replied, pouring oil on the woman's forehead. Beatrice's breathing slowed dangerously, forcing Miriam to call the family doctor herself. When the doctor arrived and stabilized her, he later told Miss Balogun, "If not for that nurse, the madam might not have made it." Meanwhile, in Abeokuta, Chief Olanrewaju sat each evening in the garden with his laptop, watching the recordings sent by his hidden cameras. Every act of greed, every careless word, every moment of pretense unfolded before him. The siblings' true faces were finally clear. But something else caught his attention: the quiet devotion of Miriam, the nurse. She cared for Beatrice like her own mother, feeding her, reading to her, praying softly at night. She never complained, never sought attention. In a world full of deceit, she was the single light still burning. One evening, at reviewing footage, Olanrewaju leaned back in his chair and sighed. "So, this is my blood," he murmured. "But blood is not always family." Mr. Balogun, who sat across from him, adjusted his glasses. "Sir, what will you do?" The chief stared at the screen, where Miriam was helping Beatrice take a few steps across the room. "Wait," he said quietly. "Let them reveal everything." Weeks passed. The sun over Lagos burned bright, but inside the mansion, the shadows grew longer. Lady Beatrice's health began to slip further, her breath becoming shallower with each passing day. Yet her eyes still glowed with quiet wisdom. She could sense what her husband was doing, even from afar. One night, as Miriam helped her sit up in bed, Beatrice whispered, "He is watching, is not he?" Miriam hesitated. "Ma'am," Beatrice smiled weakly. "Ola, my husband, he's testing them." "I know him. He has always been a man who needs proof, even when love is right before his eyes." Miriam lowered her head, touched by her faith. "He loves you deeply, ma'am." "I know," Beatrice whispered. "Tell him, when I am gone, that I already forgave them. They did what greed always does. It blinds even the best hearts. But forgiveness keeps the soul light." She looked toward the open window, where the curtains danced softly in the evening breeze. "He will find peace, if he chooses the right heir." Miriam did not understand the meaning of those words yet, but soon she would. In Abeokuta, Chief Olanrewaju stood before a portrait of his wife, painted in her younger years. He had received the doctor's call that morning. Beatrice had only a few days left. The news crushed what was left of his heart. He sat down in silence, staring at the floor for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice trembled. "Prepare the convoy," he said to his lawyer. "I am going home." The journey from Abeokuta to Lagos was long and heavy. The sky wept rain as if mourning ahead of time. By the time the convoy reached Banana Island, thunder rolled across the lagoon. The guards hurried to open the gates, surprised to see the chief live and walking, though slower, his frame thinner than before. Inside, the three siblings were seated in the grand hall, arguing in hushed voices. Adekunle wanted the company shares. Sola demanded the Lagos properties. Funmilayo claimed the family foundation should be placed under her spiritual oversight. When they heard footsteps behind them, the argument froze mid-sentence. The doors opened slowly, and there he was, Chief Olanrewaju Adetayo, standing tall in his flowing white agbada, a look of calm power on his face. For a heartbeat, silence swallowed the room. Then Funmilayo screamed, "Jesus, you are alive!" Sola staggered back, clutching his chest. But they said..." Adekunle dropped his cane, eyes wide with disbelief. "Brother, we thought..." "Yes," Olanrewaju interrupted quietly. "You thought I was dying, and you showed me exactly who you are." He walked past them, every step echoing like judgment itself. "All of you failed the simplest test, compassion." The siblings stood frozen, unable to speak. Olanrewaju stopped at the center of the room. His eyes swept over them, one by one. "You replaced love with greed. You counted my possessions before my pulse. My wife, your sister-in-law, lay suffering upstairs, and not one of you truly cared for her." He turned toward the stairway, where Miriam stood nervously in her uniform, except one. The siblings looked at her in confusion. "Miriam," the chief said softly, "come forward." She hesitated, then stepped down, bowing. "Sir." "You cared for my wife as though she were your mother," he said. "You prayed with her, you protected her, you stayed awake through the night. You did not know you were being watched. Yet your heart was pure." He faced his siblings again. "Tell me, who among you brought her water at midnight when she cried in pain? Who read to her when her voice was too weak? Who sat beside her, not for wealth, but for love?" No one answered. Funmilayo clutched her Bible tighter, eyes down. Sola cleared his throat, muttering something about being busy with arrangements. Adekunle looked away, his pride crumbling under silence. Olanrewaju took a deep breath. "You have all shown me that inheritance is not a birthright. It is a burden meant for the faithful." At that moment, a doctor emerged from the hallway upstairs. His face was solemn. "Sir," he said gently, "Madam Beatrice has passed." The chief's world fell quiet. For a moment he simply stood still, the sound of rain against the windows, the only thing that dared to speak. Then he closed his eyes, tears breaking through his composure. He turned toward the stairs, ripping the rail as he ascended slowly to her room. The siblings followed behind, their greed momentarily forgotten. When he reached her bedside, Beatrice lay peaceful, a faint smile on her lips, as though she knew he would come. He sank to his knees beside her, whispering, "My heart, you waited for me." He held her hand one last time, then bowed his head in prayer. After a long silence, he stood and faced the family. "Bury her with honor, but know this, she has already judged you." 3 weeks later, the family gathered again in the same mansion for the reading of a will. The air was tense, every breath heavy with expectation. Mr. Balagun, the family lawyer, opened a leather folder and began reading. In accordance with the last directives of Chief Olanrewaju Adetayo, the estate, businesses, and properties of the Adetayo Family Trust are to be distributed as follows. The siblings leaned forward, eyes gleaming. All immediate family members, namely Mr. Adekunle Adetayo, Mr. Sola Adetayo, and Miss Funmilayo Ajayi, are hereby granted a one-time severance gift of 10 million naira each, with no further claim to any portion of the estate. "What?" Adekunle shouted, leaping to his feet. 10 million? That is an insult. Sola slammed the table. This must be a joke. Funmilayo began muttering prayers, her voice shaking. "Blood of Jesus, what kind of evil manipulation is this?" Mr. Balogun continued calmly. "The remainder of the estate, including all businesses, shares, properties, vehicles, and trusts, shall be transferred under a new foundation, the Beatrice Adetayo Memorial Foundation for Widows and Orphans, to be managed by Miss Miriam Olufunka Adewale, who shall serve as its executive director." The room went silent. Miriam gasped, covering her mouth. "Sir, no, I cannot." But the chief stood up slowly. "You can, because Beatrice believed you could." He looked at his siblings, eyes cold now. "She told me forgiveness is strength. I forgive you all, but I will not reward greed. I built my empire with my sweat, and I will leave it only in hands that know compassion." Funmilayo began to cry, begging. Adekunle cursed under his breath. Sola stormed out of the room, his footsteps echoing like thunder. Olanrewaju turned back to Miriam. "From today, this house is no longer a symbol of pride. It is a place of service. You will use it to feed the hungry, shelter widows, and educate children. In her name." He placed a golden locket in her hand. Inside was Beatrice's picture. "She chose you long before I did." Tears streamed down Miriam's cheeks. "Thank you, sir. I will not fail her." Months later, the mansion that once glittered with gold now bustled with laughter and hope. Women who had lost everything found refuge there. Children ran across the courtyard, their voices echoing like music. Chief Olanrewaju, older and quieter now, spent his days sitting on the balcony, watching the sea with a calm heart. Every evening he would hear the children singing the same songs Beatrice once hummed in the kitchen. One night he whispered to the wind, "You were right, my love. Forgiveness is peace." The moonlight bathed his face, and for the first time in years he smiled, not as a billionaire, not as a man who built an empire, but as a soul finally free from the weight of distrust. And so it was that the story of Chief Olanrewaju Adetayo became a quiet legend in Lagos, a tale whispered by drivers, traders, and pastors alike. They said the man who owned everything learned too late that love is the only inheritance that matters. Moral: greed may win wealth, but only love builds legacy. In the end, the truest riches are not counted in naira, but in hearts touched and lives changed.